Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my random thoughts on Thursdays. And guess what? I wrote a book. So yeah, I recently just finished self-publishing a children's book that I actually wrote the story over 20 years ago now, and it's sort of been sitting around gathering dust. I never found anyone to illustrate it, never looked that hard to find someone to illustrate it. And I was hanging out on one of these kind of a social media kind of site. It's called W's. It's neither here nor there, but just kind of interacting with people on the site. And this one gal was posting some of her artwork, and I was like, wow, that's actually really good artwork. You know, would you be interested in illustrating a book? And so we kind of got together, we started talking about it. I shared with her the story, and we decided to go for it. You know, got a contract in place so that we can share revenue, that kind of thing, you know, all the businessy stuff. But for the last, I don't know, 6 to 8 months, we've been kind of collaborating together. I mean, I'd already written the story, although I did make some changes because it was over 20 years ago and people are a lot more health conscious these days, so I kind of put a little health conscious twist at the end, very subtle, but I did. And so I did kind of modernize it a little bit, and then just kind of collaborated with my illustrator. Her name is Kate Evanson, and she has done really good work. I mean, she actually did everything. We ended up going back and forth between hand-drawn or computer, and we ended up with computer images instead. And I thought she did a really good job of bringing to life the characters that I wrote about in my story. This is a very small children's book, so it's big pictures, you know, one line of text for each large picture and everything. There's not a lot of story behind it. It's mostly sing-songy, rhymey kind of a story. It's the adventures of a little bear and a little lion. Did a little bear and did a little lion are their names, and they wear sailor suits and they kind of go on these adventures out in the ocean. And their first adventure, the first book, is to Coconut Island, which is the story I wrote 20 years ago. If the book does well enough, which I haven't quite decided how I would define that, possibly maybe if I sell 100 copies, I'll consider that well enough. If it does that, then I might write a sequel and have them go on another adventure on a different island, that kind of thing. But that's the premise of the book, is these cute little anthropomorphized animal characters that go on these adventures out on the high seas by themselves. And the inspiration for the story was actually the very first line of the book is, did a little lion and did a little bear set out to sea on the pickle palm chair. And that's the first line. And that line actually came from one of the children I used to babysit. I actually babysat for like 9 years. It's probably one of the many factors of why I decided never to have children, because I'm like, okay, I've had 9 years of caring for children. I'm done. I also decided that being able to give the children back at the end of the evening was a good thing. So yes, it might seem weird to some people that I, as a very vocal child-free person, that I have written a children's book, but maybe this will prove to people that no, I don't hate children. I generally like children. I love my nieces and nephews to death, and I wish I could spoil them more than I do. I probably am not as spoilerific as I'd like to be, and I need to change that. But yeah, I have no problem with children. It's, you know, I went and like I said, I babysat for 9 years. I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education. I wanted to teach, you know, K through third grade. I ended up teaching 8th. That was horrible. Long other story. Regardless, so yeah, I mean, it's something I've really loved to do, and actually one of my favorite parts of the babysitting that I did for years, and then also because I was a student teacher for first graders, my favorite part was reading them stories. I love reading kids stories, and so you know, being able to write my own story that I can read to my nieces and nephews is kind of exciting and everything. And I don't know, it was just a fun project and things, and I do not expect to become some world famous children's book author. I really don't. The fact that self-publishing is a thing nowadays. It's just so wonderful because now people like me, I was able to, between myself and the illustrator and my work with Adobe products, with Photoshop and Illustrator, that kind of thing, I was able to put together the book myself and do all the labor in terms of layout and all that stuff, and then I went through the Amazon CreateSpace to self-publish, and the whole process was so simple. It's amazing how nice it is, and you don't even have to pay any money up front. It's all print on demand, so they don't print the book until someone buys a copy and that kind of thing. So it works out so wonderfully for everyone. And I actually have some plans to write another book, not a children's book though. I actually want to write like a real book next. I actually decided I'm going to do NaNoWriMo later this year in November. For those of you who don't know what NaNoWriMo is, it's National Novel Writing Month, and you basically spend the month trying to put together a rough draft of a 50,000 word, roughly 50,000 word novel. The goal is to write 1,667 words a day, and then by the end of the month, you should have a rough draft of a novel. After which, of course, obviously you want to edit and tweak and finalize and everything. You can't just publish it immediately. But I'm already working on an outline and fleshing out the characters. I already have a concept in place. I don't want to talk about the concept too much because, I'm paranoid. I don't want someone to say, oh, that's a great idea, and go run off and write the book that I want to write. Suffice it to say, it's going to be high fantasy with a sci-fi twist. So there's going to be elves and that kind of thing in it. So there's that twist in it. But like I said, there's going to be a little sci-fi twist to the whole story. And so I'm not going to say too much more about that yet. I want it written and copyrighted first. Once I actually have once I have the final version and I have the copyright applied, then, even if it's not published yet, I'll talk about it more, but that's not going to happen until well after November, probably early next year. And my book, I do actually have an official copyright and an ISBN and everything for the children's book as well. I wanted to make sure I legally covered everything. I don't necessarily have to. Well, the ISBN, they kind of make you do one way or the other, but I wanted to make sure that I did the official. I did the copyright for the text, and my illustrator did the copyright for her illustrations, so everything's covered. Because that's just the legal thing to do. For YouTube, we could submit copyright applications for every video we post, but who has the time for that? Not to mention it costs like $55 for every application, so like most people don't bother. So there's an implicit copyright with the content that we post on YouTube, rather than an explicit copyright that we've actually applied for. But for a work like a book, it's kind of in your best interest to go ahead and apply for the official legal copyright and everything. So anyway, obviously I am so excited for this. I'm so happy. I am going to put links down below in terms of where you can purchase it. If you're interested, you can at least look, and if you know someone with a small child who would like to have the book, I would greatly appreciate someone buying it. But again, I'm not planning on becoming like a world famous children's book author from this. But it's just kind of cute, and it was a neat idea, and at the very least I'm going to share it with all my nieces and nephews and friends who have kids and everything else. So that's, at the very least, those children will hopefully like the story. But anyway, so that's basically all I want to talk about today, and I thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everyone who does watch when you do, especially if you watch it to the end. You get extra thumbs up for that. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and until next time, take care. Bye-bye.